person said, with all the talk about child sex trafficking and missing children in the news right now, is this something I should address with my children? And if so, how?
Yeah, good question. Yes, it is something that you should talk with your kids about. You should give them a frame of reference, for what it is, because they're going to be hearing about it. They're going to see it in the news. They're going to see it on TV. They're going to hear others talking about it. And it's always good for information to come from mom and dad. Like, it's always good for the frame to be set in terms of the lens to kind of think through these kinds of issues, to be intentionally set. And I say intentionally, meaning instead of just by whatever kids pick up from watching, listening to mom and dad and what they think it means about the matter, or just kind of hopefully proactively and intentional instead of reactively, then being able to have this conversation before the conversation is coming to you. And there's two maybe sections of that conversation that you want to have. One is just about what it is, right? And to have that at an age-appropriate conversation, right? So you can have a age-appropriate conversation about sex trafficking with a kid at any age, right? It doesn't, if they're old enough to understand like stranger danger, they're old enough to understand that sometimes bad things can happen and not everybody in the world is good. And that sometimes there are grown-ups that hurt kids. And this topic, this trafficking topic, is about situations where some grown-ups hurt kids and wanting to protect them when that happens, or hurt other people even, because trafficking isn't just a child kind of scenario, but I think the question was specifically around kind of children and that dynamic. And so in simple language like that, most kids that are verbal are going to be able to process that and understand that. And that's a perfectly good enough level of detail for a young child. And then you can get progressively more detailed, what that looks like in terms of the grooming and the kidnapping and the different things that can be a part of it. And so one part is educational in terms of just a frame for understanding what's happening there. The other part of it is a defensive kind of piece of knowing how to recognize, something's not right, right? And you can use language just like that. Something's not right. Okay? You don't have to use elaborate and complex or technical language. Simply a matter of, how do you recognize if an interaction that you're having with an adult doesn't feel right? What do you do if an interaction you're having with an adult doesn't feel right? What do you do if you kind of notice these kinds of grooming type behaviors and you see it and it seems, is this that? To be able to have them know to communicate, know to kind of distance from the situation, know to let somebody know that they're having this experience that's taking place. Kind of know what to do in if they're in an active kind of abduction scenario, right? Where, and there's a lot of other resources, a lot of resources out there that you can engage about, like passive resistance and things like that, on how you can kind of decrease the risks of abduction. So being familiar with the resources from those that have spent the time studying and practicing and deploying these things, and convey that as part of the conversation as well. So educate them, give them a frame for understanding what it's about, and also educate them in terms of how to be safe in a world that's not always safe. And don't freak your kids out, which maybe sounds easier said than done given the conversation that we just had. And as a parent, we can be really freaked out, right? But we also don't want to send the message that the world is a dangerous place everywhere, and they need to be afraid of every adult that they see, and they kind of need to live in fear about something bad happening around every corner. Like that kind of hypervigilance and anxiety producing and engendering atmosphere is really not helpful for them either, and will, over the course of their life, teaching them to be an anxious human being is probably going to have more negative impact than they are likely to experience by way of trafficking. And so there's a balance in there of matter-of-factly communicating around these things without terrifying your children or having a atmosphere that where you live in fear and they catch the anxiety from you, or where you kind of communicate a message that leaves them living in fear.